Hi, I'm Andrew Spieler.
And I'm Mary Hope Rennie.
And you're watching or listening to Behind the Sign, Real Stories from Real Estate. Welcome back to episode 26. And today we have a very special guest on our show. You know, I've noticed I say a very special guest every time because honestly, every time somebody's on, I'm like, this is a special guest. I legitimately enjoy the guests that we have coming on the podcast. So
even though he says it every time,
even though I say it every time,
call him out.
No, exactly, because every guest is special, right? But in any case,
this one is actually even more special because we've passed over the 25 episode mark.
That's right.
So this is 26.
That's
why you're a special guest. The last one was special because it was the 25th.
Right. That's right.
But yes, we have a great guest today, Riley Knox, who is with Knox Home Inspections, and he's personally done a lot of my home inspections and known you for several years.
Long time.
It's been a few years. We've both been in it, but we have him here to talk about PFAS, but also about inspections in general and your take on the whole real estate world right now. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I don't even know anything about why you got into real estate. What's the history before that, and what got you into real estate in the inspection world?
I don't even really know how I got into it
Problem.
either. I met an inspector, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And then I looked into the class, and I took the class, and I got a license for the class.
Wow.
And that was over 9 years ago.
Okay, so what were you doing before that?
I was working in hospitality.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you just decided to get into it. It
Yep.
kind of sounds like a lot of realtors.
I really like to learn, and I like to break things down. So I kind of had an interest in that, digging into each part of the homes and the properties and stuff like that.
Had you been in the home building at all, or you just jumped right in, kind of like every realtor does?
Yep.
I like houses. I like showing houses. Sure, this sounds good. It's
Yep.
only 40 hours.
Yep.
What does that involve to get your license in
Well,
inspection?
a lot of inspectors do it online now, but I don't like that. I went to MCC, Manchester Community College, which is great because they actually have the class where you can go in and you can tear apart the boilers and the furnaces and the electrical panels and all that stuff, and you get to actually go out and do mock home inspections with the teacher.
That's great.
On the weekends, which was awesome. And you don't get that when you do that online. I think the whole process was about 8 months, if I remember right. It was a long time ago.
Okay. So I bet we did meet right after you got, I think.
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember the house. It was my listing. You were coming in, I think, with the Vista team, with Chris Powell's.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with them.
Yeah. So, okay. So it was a whim that you decided to get in. What has kept you in for 9 years?
I really enjoy it. I enjoy helping people, answering questions, breaking things down, and, still constantly learning about new things because things are always changing. And I also enjoy that I get that every day is different. Every day is different. The houses are going to be different. The routes that I take are going to be different. I enjoy that. Yesterday was commercial building in Manchester, multifamily in Dover, and then single family in Concord. So I was all over the whole state yesterday. And
You and I probably passed each other multiple times.
How many miles did you say you did in the last few days, Andrew?
How many miles?
Yeah, or hours?
Miles, I don't even know. It's probably about 20, 22 hours in the last 3 or 4 days, I'd say. I do it. I work down in New York, so that's unfair.
I do at least 30,000 miles a year.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what would you say, before we jump into PFAS and what all that is, what would you say is, from your perspective on a home inspection, what's the most important thing to be looking at or for in a home? If there was one thing that you could inspect in a house.
We're going to be talking about water quality, the water in and the water out, the septic. Those can be the most expensive things. A roof is a roof, heating system is a heating system, but the things that you can't see are the things that you should really be worried about. Your water quality can change from $0 all the way up to $25,000 really quickly, as can your septic. If your septic's failed, you won't know it unless you dig it up, hire a septic evaluator, and same with your water. You won't know if you have arsenic or radon in your water unless you do a test.
And I think, not that it is unique to New Hampshire, but New Hampshire has more homes that are on private well and private septic than most. Anybody who's relocating here, so many of them, this is brand new and scary.
And then the other thing is the most important thing about, the homes is you can go in and you can look at the home and, of course you don't really know what to look at as a home inspector. I look at things differently.
Right.
But it's the scary things is the things you can't see. Because if you go into a house and you're like, oh no, the basement is filled with water, then you know that. Or if you peek up into the attic and it's filled with mold, then at least you know that. But we might need a $30,000, $40,000 septic system, and especially if you're waterfront.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you go in, you're sort of looking for those things. What are the things that you can do to sort of identify some of that without being able to see it? Some of the things that you look for when you're trying to identify.
It's a great question. So like as you got buyers out there shopping for houses and stuff like that, you got to take pictures and video. And then do your homework from there. I tell a lot of agents, take a picture, send me a picture, because I'll get phone calls and they'll be asking me about, we saw this thing in the basement and it was like this big. And I'm like, where's the picture? Oh, we forgot to take a picture.
There's this thing this big.
I can't help you, you should be looking down in the basement. That's where all the heavy stuff is, your mechanicals and stuff like that. And take a picture, show it to your friend, show it to your uncle or whoever. Use the Google search or Chat GPT or whatever it is that they're doing these days. But you need to do a little bit of homework. If you're thinking about putting in an offer with a dug well, you should probably Google a dug well. Or if the property disclosure says that it's asbestos piping in the basement, you may want to do some research into that before you're under contract and we're at the home inspection, just so you're a little bit better prepared.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's also talking about realtors. That's something that we're able to help guide and direct. Not that we consult in that per se, because we're not a professional. Yet we've seen, actually, we had an investor here at our investor club, and she's been an agent for so long, but she got into it because she just loved the inspection. She got to learn it. We learned so much through the inspections. Like, we're like, oh, this is so cool. We're learning from you guys because that's not our job, yet we need to be there and represent our client to the best of our ability. And some of these things we can start catching on to pretty quickly. We know that if there's this or this, it probably means this or that, right?
I learned a fun one today. This was fun. We were in front of a pond, and they had chimney flues around the trees. Is the camera here? So the trees are like this big around. And they had
chimney flues?
Chimney flues, metal chimney flues around them at the base. And I was alone, and everybody was away, and it took me a minute, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
And beavers. So that those trees don't get chewed down. And you just see something different every single day. They wanted to protect those trees right there. And I'm like, that was really smart.
Was that a post install or before they grew up?
The trees were, this big around, and they just wrapped them about this high so that the beavers couldn't chew them down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Actually, that's a good idea, because I think a beaver or something is chewing my kids' playground in the backyard.
Put some metal around it.
Yeah, if we're going to reinstall the beam, but I'm putting that around it. Yeah, there you go.
That was just this morning.
Yeah. No.
You saved his play set.
That's right. You saved my children.
You saved his children.
From no fun. So the PFAS topic is one that I find very interesting, right? Because we need water every day to survive, right? It's the thing we depend on the most. And yet it tends to be the thing that gets contaminated the quickest and the easiest with all kinds of things, right?
Yep.
Obviously in the state of New Hampshire, radon's a big issue, right? And then you also have PFAS now, which has come as a result of this, primarily, correct me if I'm wrong, the 3M sort of leak that happened.
Saint-Gobain's.
Yeah, Saint-Gobain's, right.
Yep.
And that's sort of been leaching its way kind of everywhere, right?
There's a lot of other hot spots out there too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Can you start a little bit from the beginning?
Sure.
You've done the research. Yeah. I'm like, I know of it, but
what is PFAS?
Yeah, what is PFAS and
plastics?
There you go.
It's plastics. Yeah. There's hundreds and thousands of compounds of plastics, and the words are this long, and I don't know how to say them.
I'm disappointed in you.
We just say PFAS or PFOAs, and they're kind of different families, same group. The entire world is filled with plastics now.
Right.
I mean, look at the oceans and stuff like that. But Saint-Gobain's is the most famous one in New Hampshire, where they were dumping the stuff from the Velcro into the river.
Right.
So everybody down Merrimack, Nashua area that got contaminated. That was all over the news. Pease Air Force Base is another hotspot. Teflon gear. Teflon and Teflar is plastic. So the Air Force Base is a hotspot. Fire departments throughout the state, when they're washing their fire retardant gear, that's ending up in well water. There's a huge hotspot right down the road near the Market Basket, Bedford.
Oh, great.
Not great, but yeah, there is one right there. And then down near the Lowe's in Nashua, lot of red. And part of the reason that I know this, and you can share this with everybody with the podcast, is New Hampshire DES, Department of Environmental Services. Their website is amazing. They have a map on there of the state, and all of the data that they've collected about PFAS is on there, and you can type in your address, and it's a red light, green light. So if you're looking at Nashua, you're looking at Pease, and New Boston has a couple of spots too. You say, oh no, the house I want to buy or the house I live in is near this.
Yes.
You can learn it through the website.
Now, is it just for well water or is it in the public water?
That's a great question. I believe that's taken care of in the public water.
That's what I think. But there's also so many, what we've heard, right?
Right.
Especially in the Merrimack area. I remember when, but it did affect the public water for a while.
Yep, it did.
Right.
Yep.
Well, they were giving out bottled water to homes in Bedford, even, right?
Yep.
Wasn't that sort of a thing? Because they simply couldn't use it.
I'm not sure. I rarely test public water.
Right,
so
right. But that was a situation, but it seems like it's been taken care of. So you're testing it just like if you did a water sample, you'd do the same test.
It's a little bit different. The test is very expensive. It's way more expensive than your standard test for bacteria and lead, arsenic,
Got it.
radon, stuff like that. The time frame also is not the same as your regular water.
Collect it right away, and
you got to get it right away. You got to glove up, and also the turnaround time is 3 to 4 weeks. So you really can't do that during a real estate transaction, especially with your quick contracts these days that you guys are having.
Don't you love our quick contracts?
Oh my God! Can we talk about that at the end?
That might be too much of a hot topic.
It takes 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's very expensive. It's over $300. The state though is getting ahead of it, which is great. They are offering free testing. It still takes a long time. But you can go on the NHDES website and apply for that, and they can come out and do the sample for you. And they are also regulating, I believe it's 4 or maybe 5 compounds now. So they'll do your test, and if you come back elevated for any of those compounds, you can get rebate money. And it's not cash. They're not going to give you cash to fix it. But if you install the filtration system, on a well, you qualify for a $5,000 rebate, which more than covers it. I think they're going for like $3,800. I know you just bought one.
Yeah, right. It sounds about right.
Yeah. So you'll be fully covered. You got to pay it, and then they'll rebate you back. Or if you're on a well and you have access to public water, you will qualify for a $10,000 rebate to connect into the public water.
Oh, interesting.
That's interesting.
Yep.
That's great. And you know, I feel like so many people, that is overwhelming and kind of scary for people.
Yeah.
Yet, that's why I love that there are already solutions to this. Now, we didn't even talk about, plastics and water sound bad.
Yeah, the forever chemicals, they call them. They don't break down.
Yeah.
So what, it sounds bad.
It's cumulative. So once it goes in your body over time, what they're finding is that it triggers all kinds of different cancers and all kinds of other unknown illnesses and diseases. And it's been in things for many, many years. As they said, like anything that says it's waterproof, a jacket, shoes, whatever, 3M sort of invented this micro chain of
Teflon.
Yeah, Teflon.
That was in the 50s.
Yeah. And so it's been this ongoing thing. And now it's becoming like far more acknowledged by the public, just because of like the long-term damage
side effects of it.
Yeah. And what's interesting though is with PFAS, it's PFAS is really bad if you ingest it, but if it doesn't necessarily come in through the air, right?
Correct.
However, radon, right? You can ingest radon through the water, but when it comes out through the air, it's really bad for you. So hot showers, running hot water at the sink, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And if you've got both, this is what I was just learning, is that if you're mitigating radon and you're putting in the PFAS system, the radon mitigation charcoal, I think, that they use to
that's one way.
Yeah, can become radioactive over time, depending upon the level of PFAS that you have in the water.
Though that will happen anyway, regardless of the PFAS.
Yeah, right.
That's why they normally use a bubble up system for the radon.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have the bubble up system, it doesn't have that same interaction.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and what I learned is that like if your PFAS levels are low enough, then as long as you switch the filter out every like 2 or 3 years or something, it's fine. But if you were to like put in the larger filter and have a higher level of PFAS, that thing can become a nuclear core and nobody will touch it. You have to find a federal agency who's going to come and remove it, right?
Exactly.
Which like blows my mind because I'm like, I'm sure that there are people out there who are doing that willy-nilly because they're either not paying attention or they don't have a good inspector doing their job, right? Like that's a real public health situation.
I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, a lot of buyers and agents, they'll go out there to these houses and they'll say, oh, they have water filtration. We're all set.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That water filtration is older than I am. You know, like it hasn't been maintained in quite some time. I see that issue a lot. Yeah. You always test the well water, no matter what, unless they have like a brand new system and they give you a test from a third party. Should always be from a third party. You don't want the homeowner taking the sample with the Poland Springs bottle, which I've seen.
Oh my goodness.
And builders too. Not to I won't say who it is, but I've seen people filling up lab bottles with Poland Spring bottles at the lab.
I feel like that's going to be high in PFAS then, right? Use plastic.
Yeah.
Cha-ching.
Well, yeah, you always test the water.
Absolutely.
You should test it regularly anyway, even if you do have filtration. You can go right to the lab, say you got a water softener.
Right.
You should be testing your calcium once a year to make sure that your water softener is still doing its job. Yeah. You know?
So let's say you do have high levels of PFAS, and you said PFAO as well.
Yeah.
What is the resolution of that? It sounds like it's some sort of filtration, but is it specific to this?
It's like a charcoal bed.
Okay.
I believe you just bought one, right? And all of the plastics will get stuck to that media that's inside of that tank. And then every 2 or 3 years, you have to swap those tanks out. It's called rebedding. So they'll bring in new media, take that other stuff, put it in the trash.
So it's a completely different system than a regular filtration.
Correct. Yeah. Every different contaminant is going to have a different thing that you'll have to do. So your radon, you got your bubble ups. Your arsenic, you want your reverse osmosis systems. Iron, manganese, calcium, you would use a softener, iron reduction, stuff like that. There's a whole different range.
Well, and that's where I think people don't understand how many things that are involved and the maintenance of it.
Yeah. That's why I said it was the most important thing because it can change things a lot.
Well, and I do know because I've been in the business long enough, I'll have bought homes, sold homes, bought homes, right? The same one. And water tests come back different. I remember, if you remember, I'm thinking it was about 6 or 7 years ago, the arsenic was really high.
Yep.
Because I think that year we didn't have rain.
Correct.
This year we have that opposite effect.
So there's more water in the well.
Yeah.
Yep. And so the arsenic levels for everybody, boom, boom, every time we tested it, it was exhausting because everybody had to chock their wells and do the whole system, everything. But it's very interesting. I think so many people, when they buy a home, don't understand that upkeep, the maintenance, it's kind of like I almost feel like it's a living organism.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie says that.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's a living, breathing organism. It's an ecosystem.
It really is.
And it can be overwhelming to a lot of like first-time home buyers. They feel like there's so many different things. But, you know, when you've been doing it for so long, like you just think of it in each section different, you know, like when I'm going through the house, focus on the roof first. And then you focus on your shell, your exterior.
That's good you said focus on your roof first because our last inspector said start with the roof.
As
because
our insurance guy.
And our insurance guy.
Yep.
Every one of you. There you go.
Yeah.
It's proven fact. No, because everything is held underneath that roof.
Yeah.
Therefore, anyway, but that's where our insurance guy said that's really the one and only thing you have to worry about on a house is really the roof.
So just think about it, you know, separately: roof, shell, foundation, heating, cooling, water in, water out. And then in your attic, you have your insulation and your ventilation, and that's a whole thing in its own.
Yes.
And then the rest is all just stuff. Electric, if I had to say electric. But the rest is all just stuff.
Right.
When you're talking about wells too, is there a difference between like wells that are drilled at different depths for different sort of access and quality to water too?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you got your dug wells, the shallow wells. You don't see any of those in new construction anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's all drilled wells these days. I've seen some drilled wells, most drilled wells going down 100 feet, 200 feet, something like that. But I've seen some that go down like 2,000.
Wow.
if they are in a poor area.
Holy cow.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Wow.
The pump for that must be
Well,
intense.
the pump is, standard pump. It's just
Way further.
get it way down deep
Yeah.
to hit water.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. What are some of the things that you see when you're inspecting that like are sort of common things that people tend to either not keep up with or just fail very quickly and easily?
Furnace filters.
Furnace filters?
Yeah.
Really?
It's so easy to change.
Yeah, I know. That's
At least
Whoop,
do it.
I better go do that tonight.
At least do it when we change the clocks.
yeah, right.
I mean,
We don't change clocks anymore,
Oh, is that a thing?
Well, the phone does it for you.
right?
Oh, right.
It's all digital now,
True. Well,
except for your microwave. That's the only one in my house.
uh,
There you go. You can't use that anymore.
I opened a furnace the other day, and they labeled it. They dated it. It
Yeah.
was great. But it was from 2019,
Oh my god. So it was 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Yep. Furnace filters is one, and then, I mean, maintenance wise, like you gotta upkeep the yard, and pools are a lot of work.
Mm.
You see a lot of pools that are falling in, caving in, stuff like that. Really just kind of keeping up with the paint, exterior paint.
Mm.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Keep the house painted, or it's going to start to rot, and it's expensive to pay people to do that.
Yeah.
And don't let leaks go. If you have a leak, get it fixed.
Like I have in my basement right now.
Well,
We won't. We'll get it fixed this week.
yeah. But yep, that's that on the maintenance.
Okay. Now, the craziest thing you've ever seen on an inspection.
Oh God. So, like most expensive, or like
No, just
No, we can break it into
let
two
it
parts.
run.
Most expensive fix and
Oh,
just
yeah.
generally the craziest thing you saw that you were like, wow.
The last inspector had a dead body, but not wanting you to compare to.
you had Joe.
Yeah.
You had Joe on here.
Heard that story?
Yeah, I know, sir. The most expensive one that I saw was a home that was located on a river, and I won't say where for privacy reasons. The river was approaching the house for like a long time, and it was getting really, really, really close, and it was actually starting to cause the foundation to fall into the river. So they had to do an environmental study to see if it was even possible for them to reroute the river. And
Did you say reroute the river?
correct.
Not fix the house, but reroute the river.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I
Yeah.
heard that right.
Yeah.
And it was to the tune of like $900,000 because they had to do studies to see how the river fish would be affected, the river fowl, the birds and the ducks would be affected. Properties downstream of the river, and they would have to put these big metal like footings down, deep, huge ones down in there and then rocks to
build out the edge, right?
Yeah, that was the most expensive one. It was.
So what did they just knock down the house?
I don't know. I didn't ask. I told them.
Drive by and see if it's still standing.
I said, I don't even know who you call first,
Yeah.
on this one because it's a huge problem. I don't know if they bought the house or not. I'm not sure.
That's not a fun.
How did you identify that?
Well, we were walking around the house, and when you go down the riverbank, it was kind of sketchy, but you can kind of see where all of the sand has just been eroded. But on top where the trees are, it was like a little cave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So carved
And then you're looking at it and you're like, wow, it's getting really close to the foundation. And then when you got into the basement, you could see that it was starting to crack in the foundation.
Yikes.
Okay, craziest, wild, or funny.
So we were doing a home inspection in Bow, and the house was in very, very rough shape. It had been neglected for a long time. And we didn't think that anybody was living there. And this was me and the buyer's agent and the two buyers, and the listing agent wasn't present. And we did the outside, and we went to the basement and all that. And when we got into the basement, somebody came home and started yelling, "Who the F is in my house?" And so the listing agent went upstairs, and it was a woman that apparently was living there with two gigantic German shepherds. And she said, "Get the hell out of my house before my dogs come in after you. We're out of here.
Yeah.
See you, bye."
Yep.
Right?
Oh my goodness!
We
You didn't complete the inspection?
no, we did. We relocated down the road,
Uh-huh.
like a quarter mile down the road, and got a hold of the listing agent. And we said, "Well, what the heck's going on?" And she said, "Oh no, it's her." We're like, "Who are you talking about?"
Who's her?
"She's not supposed to be there. You need to call Bow Police." And I said, "What do you mean we need to call Bow Police? We're just here at the inspection." Bow Police got them on the phone. They knew exactly the address. She was living there unbeknownst to the family or whatever. Bow police showed up in 5 minutes and removed her and the dogs very quickly.
Whoa.
Under arrest. And then we finished the inspection.
Wow.
Wow.
And then the next day, that person was out and spray painted the entire house. They got back in the house and then spray painted the entire
inside.
Both.
Oh my.
Both inside and outside of the house.
Was she just a squatter or was she
She was related to the seller.
related to the seller?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yes.
I think actually the second part is even funnier than the first part.
Yeah. Yeah, that was intense. And they, I believe, my clients actually, they bought the house. There was a large price reduction and they bought the house.
I hope the price reduction came.
Yeah.
Even to repaint.
Yeah. I was wild. But yeah, I mean, sometimes people, they don't get the message,
Yeah. Right.
you know, and they're like, what are you doing here? It's
Mhm.
like, oh my God.
Well, I think also hearing these stories, we've been very insulated the last several years with the crazy fast pace of the market, lack of inspections, lack of appraisals, kind of almost cookie cutter, everything buffered
Mhm.
that we really haven't had to see even distressed homes
Yeah.
in any way because they never get that far.
They're gone.
They're gone before. Doesn't matter because there's no inspection on the distressed homes. And so it's going to be really neat. And I think it's so important for agents to know what they're walking into in the next, I would say in the next 3 years, we're
Yep.
really going to have a difference. Have you been seeing that a little
Seen
bit?
a lot of that. Yeah. People, I mean, they relocate for jobs or whatever, and they might have waived inspection during Corona or something like that. They felt the pressure to waive inspections, and then they're selling, and I'm going into these homes and they had no idea about a lot of these issues because they didn't have an
Yeah.
inspection. Mold in the attic is a huge one. They live there for 2-3 years, and if it's not an easy attic to get to, why would you go up there? And then you go up there and it's filled with mushrooms.
I was just talking to a buyer this weekend. We were seeing a property and it had the whole house fan.
Yep.
And it brought me back, I think about 10 years ago, I had one of the most pristine homes I've ever sold. They'd been there for 30 years. They had everything labeled. I think he was an engineer, right? One of those homes that you love,
Yeah.
right? Everything. Yet they had never stored anything in the attic, probably because it wasn't supposed to, right?
Right.
The attic was covered in mold and they had no clue. And it had the whole house fan pouring the air up and there was not enough ventilation.
Yeah.
They were shocked, but they had never needed to. But in that scenario, if they had sold that home in the last several years, there probably would have been a lot of buyers
Yep.
and even agents saying this home is pristine.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think the worst case, they always say worst case scenario, there might be some mold in the attic, but we can take care of that, right?
Oh, it can be fixed. Yeah.
It can be fixed, but that would not have ever, and those buyers probably never opened the attic.
Yep.
So it'll be a very interesting. Where do you see, Ed, in the next few years, or things changing with the market from what you are observing?
I mean, that's you guys' department with the market, stuff like that. I'd like to get back to having 10-day contracts.
Oh, you were
10-day
going to talk
10-day
about that.
inspection windows. I used to get 14 days, but now
We don't like 14 days.
I know you
actually.
know you don't.
I
What?
don't. I'm an impatient person, and more importantly, I'm an impatient agent.
Oh God.
It's really tough because like last week, for example, I was booking out about 5-6 days, which is a little bit low. Normally I book out 7-8 days, especially
Yeah.
in the summertime. I must have gotten 15-20 phone calls from people that needed inspections done within 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And I literally can't. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I can't do it. That's been my biggest challenge lately. So I'd like
Right.
to get 7 and 10 days would be great. I had to deny a 7 today. I couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
It's really tough to get, especially when you want to get a septic evaluation, because I know they're booking out longer than I am right now. The companies that I like to work with are booking out far. And then if you need your water and your radon, you know what I mean? It's tough to get that all done within that tight time
Right.
frame. So I would like to get back to that, but I can't answer market questions. That'd be
No, but you are observing, and I think you've been in the market. You've been in for 9 years, so
Yeah.
you came after the last crash.
Yep.
So kind of the upswing, but more of a normalized market where there was
It's been
buyers.
crazy. I've had more jobs available than I can handle.
right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that tells us something, right?
Mhm.
That means that people, and that's very good for buyers to hear, that they can get inspections.
Yeah.
We see multiple offer situations still going on. And with that, we also have a lot of homes sitting on the market, including my team's.
Here's another one, tough one for you, is the caps, the inspection repair caps that I see from a lot of buyers.
What's that?
So like,
Yeah.
we'll let you do an inspection, Mr. Buyer or Mrs. Buyer, but we're not going to negotiate on any repair or anything needed under X amount of dollars. So like under $5,000 was my clients yesterday.
Yeah.
That's really hard because as an inspector is not allowed to give out prices.
Right.
Yeah.
So, for example, yesterday we had some electrical issues and some roof issues and some plumbing issues. And it's really hard to put a price on all of those.
Right.
Because
You really can't.
I can't. You don't know who's doing the job.
Right.
You don't know what they're going to buy. Like if you're getting a new water heater, you can get 15, 20 different kinds of water heaters. What their hourly rate is, everything like that. You can't get prices. That's a tough one, you know.
And in that instance, is that like they need to pull quotes to then say that the amount
Absolutely.
of work would be greater than the $5,000 cap, and to prove that they want to negotiate on that.
And that's stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd
And
like
that
to
maybe
see that kind of change, and it's tough. Maybe like, I don't know what the solution would be, but like, say we need a new water heater, right? And you're capped at 5,000. Your new water heater, you shouldn't be paying more than 5,000. I hope some people have. Some people pay more than 5,000 for a water heater, but
I can give you a company that will
it's
trust you that.
It's tough, you know, that back and forth. It's like your water heater is leaking. It's a huge problem, for example. But if it's not 5,000, that's not going to get repaired.
Right.
And that in and of itself, with the cycle of the market, that's going to change, right?
Yeah.
If you're not competing against anyone else.
But I also had clients that had a septic evaluation the other day that did not go well, and they're getting a whole new septic.
Absolutely.
You know,
Right.
So I mean, it's nice when that happens.
Right.
for clients.
And I think the one thing that I think, it sounds crazy, and I know you probably in one way would disagree, because I think with people seeing the option that they may not even get an inspection and now they can, buyers are a bit more, they have a bigger, broader perspective on it, that they're not like, oh my goodness, that outlet platelet needs to be replaced because it's cracked.
Right.
We need to add, I mean, do
Yeah.
you remember the lists? I mean, right? The list that you send always is long because it's supposed to be. You're supposed to find everything wrong.
Yeah.
We used to get a list of 20 items for my seller to fix.
And then they would fix them.
And they would fix them because they kind of had to, because it was a buyer's market.
Yeah.
And this and this and this and this. So anyway, it's interesting. I think it's shifting into some normalcy, some rationality, some negotiations, which is exactly where I feel like it also it sets apart even inspectors, good inspectors who really can instruct clients and agents on it, and also it helps agents really set themselves apart when they can verbalize this and negotiate this. And it's going to take a lot more skill in this market now that we're bringing inspections back. I mean, they were never away, but
it is a skill, and negotiation is a skill that you guys do. I mean, I've seen people, agents throughout the years that do it really well, and some that don't. And same with inspectors too. I just read an inspection report the other day. I won't say who. Door stoppers, you know, the little things you go on the back of the door.
Yeah.
Are we really putting those in home inspection reports?
They're saying that because there was none?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Is that a thing now? Because I would never, ever, ever, ever. If there was
It's not a safety issue. I can understand.
There was also a picture of one as reference, so we know, just in case we don't know what they're talking about.
One.
Yes,
right, not the solid one.
And then in that report, and it was for a friend of mine, he asked me to read it. I don't read other guys' reports.
Yeah.
Girls. Hi, Jenna Roberts out there. But he asked me to read it, so I did. And then I went out there to the property because I wanted to compare the report to the actual house and see what I would look at versus what was in his report. And we were completely on different pages about what is a red and what is a yellow. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I didn't get a full inspection, but they gave me an hour in the house to do a quick walkthrough. And I wouldn't say that he missed things, but he missed a couple things, but just didn't flag the important things that I thought were the more important, expensive repairs. And there's a lot of issues missed with the deck, but
Yeah. So when you go in, how long do you typically have for an inspection?
I have as long as I need.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll try to pressure me. Oh, somebody's got to come home, or I have to leave, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. Just don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
But normally, most home inspections I shoot for 2 hours.
Mhm.
Sometimes, if it's a nice, clean house, might be 90 minutes. If it's a gigantic house, it might be there 3-4 hours.
And then what's your turnaround time? Do you have to have them that day? Or
I deliver my reports every single time the same day.
same day?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as possible. I don't, because the next day I got 2.
Because you are on the next one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You
Well,
and I
this
live
was-
parallel lives.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you have the same
I'm trying to-
situation.
I'm trying to find the pretty angles, and you're trying to find the things that are.
we pass.
hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That's all right.
No, it's been great. Well, that's exactly what I feel like we've gotten so much information. And I feel like, again, this part of real estate, there are so many avenues that realtors have to kind of be juggling and balancing and understanding. And we've had a lot of partners in real estate come on because we are all working for the same end goal.
Yeah.
You're not trying to get them out of not buying a house. That's not your goal. An appraiser is not trying to get them to pay less for a house. They're trying to get the end goal. We're all trying to protect the buyers and sellers. Start to finish completion. And I think when we can work together and find those partners that we work well with, it makes everything much easier.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
It really is. It's about the people and the networking and that all. So, any last words of wisdom for realtors? Any advice for a realtor?
We needed to touch on it. building-center.org
Okay.
is my secret weapon.
Okay.
So you're looking at a water heater or a boiler or a furnace. And also, I got to deal with this while I'm on here. Don't call a boiler or a furnace in front of me because I'll call you out on it.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh,
You guys
call a boiler a furnace.
You tend to call everything a furnace.
Yes.
And there's a
There-
tremendous difference between a boiler and a furnace.
Yes, there is.
And I'll call
It
you
took
out
about
on it.
7 years to figure that out.
At the inspection right in front of you, okay? It's on my website. I got a blog on it. But anyway, building-center.org. I do not remember all of the serial code, secret orders. Is it the first 2 numbers? Is it the last 2 numbers? Stuff like that. But buildingcenter.org does. And that goes back to taking pictures of things when you're in the house. If you're in a house and somebody says, oh, that water heater looks wicked old, take a picture of the serial code and take a picture of the brand. And you go on to buildingcenter.org and it will decode it for you. And it will tell you exactly how old it is. It's good for about 95% of brands. And the other 5 that you can't get right away, it gives you the phone number to call the manufacturer.
Cool.
So
That's great.
You can call them up that way.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Will you
guys.
come again another time?
I would love to.
Good.
Great. We'll be back for part 2 then.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Take care. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Behind the Sign, Real Stories from Real Estate.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and gained a little insight into the world behind those for sale signs.
Today's episode was brought to you by Keller Williams Realty Metropolitan, proudly serving New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts. A special thank you to our agents, leadership, and partners at KW Metro for their continued support.
And thanks to you, our amazing listeners and viewers. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Leave us a review or comment. We love hearing your feedback, and it helps more people discover the show.
And if you have a real estate story you'd like to share or a question you want answered on a future episode, reach out to us at metro.kw.com or find us on Instagram, handle at KWMetroNH.
Until next time, we'll see you
Behind the Sign.